Hello everybody, welcome back to Simulation Sunday. I'm your host, Bradley Berger, and today I'll be covering the 1804 US presidential election, simulating it as if it happened in the modern day. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel as it gets off the ground. Now, without further ado, let's get to our candidates. Well, how are things going for Mr. Jefferson, who also won the election in real life this time? Quite well, actually. Jefferson's program of reducing the federal government was popular with the American public, as it ended up largely benefiting the common man, or working class people. He advocated for what's now, fittingly, called Jeffersonian democracy, a philosophy that strictly adheres to American republicanism. It emphasizes the common man and opposes elitism from merchants, bankers, and similar groups. The Democratic Republicans, who supported his philosophy, obviously, sought to increase white male suffrage by eliminating property requirements, boost economic mobility, and promote public education. Jefferson's first term also saw him, though unconstitutionally, purchase the Louisiana Territory from France, massively expanding the United States in a very, very short time. All of this while the country maintained a strong economy. So overall, pretty impressive, certainly better than Adams' presidency. And then there's Pinckney. Pinckney, Adams' unofficial running mate in 1800, was basically the fallback candidate for the Federalists. The party was in shambles by this point, having lost much of their support in the Mid-Atlantic and South due to Jefferson's popularity. The only region where they still had a solid base was New England, which was full of wealthy merchants and industrious tycoons, the original core of the Federalist Party. But they had to run somebody, and they chose their most popular remaining figure. Pinckney largely shared Adams' views, though with one major difference: his fervent pro-slavery stance. This stemmed from his time as governor of South Carolina, part of the Deep South, a region infamous for its racism at the time. Adams had largely sidestepped the issue since Massachusetts abolished slavery in the 1800s, and it just didn't really matter that much to him. Besides, taking a hard stance on it would ruin his popularity. But the Federalists hoped that Pinckney's support for slavery might help him win over Southern voters, giving them their best shot. To be clear, this wouldn't really affect the election too much in the modern day. Both candidates were definitely pretty racist. Still, it's worth noting that Pinckney actively supported the federal enforcement of slavery, especially through the Fugitive Slave Clause, where the federal government would force people in free states to return escaped slaves back to their owners. So overall, this election seems skewed heavily towards Jefferson's Democratic-Republican Party, and yeah, it was. In real life, Jefferson won the 1804 election 162-14, with Pinckney only carrying Connecticut, Delaware, and 2 electors in Maryland. But a lot has changed since then, so how would this election go today? Let's find out. As always, let's begin with the safe Federalist states, and this time, there are actually quite a few. Pinckney would win the safe states of Connecticut and its 7 electoral votes, 58-42, and Delaware and its 3 electoral votes, 60-40. Both are highly educated, suburban, and white northeastern states. They also remain loyal to Adams in the 1800 simulation, supporting the Federalists even during their toughest days. The elitist lean of the Federalist platform would appeal strongly to these states, which both generally favor a strong federal government to enforce laws and stabilize the economy. Then for our safe Jefferson states, we have Idaho and its 4 electoral votes, 66-34, Montana and its 4 electoral votes, 65-35, Wyoming and its 3 electoral votes, 70-30, North Dakota and South Dakota and both their 3 electoral votes, both 60-40. Nebraska District 3 and its electoral vote, 80-20. Kansas and its 6 electoral votes, 59-41. Oklahoma and its 7 electoral votes, 65-35. Missouri and its 10 electoral votes, 58-42. Arkansas and its 6 electoral votes, 70-30. Louisiana and its 8 electoral votes, 65-35. Kentucky and its 8 electoral votes, 66-34, and Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes, 64-36, and in West Virginia and its 4 electoral votes 72 to 28. All of these fall into Jefferson's usual coalition: white, rural, working class states. Margins are slightly lower in places with larger urban centers like Missouri or Tennessee, but not by nearly enough to make them competitive. With the safe states out of the way, let's move on to the likely states. For our likely Pinckney states, we have Massachusetts and its 11 electoral votes, 55 to 45. Rhode Island and its 3 electoral votes, 53 to 47. And Hawaii and its 4 electoral votes, 53 to 47. These are educated, wealthy, and progressive states that support a regulated economy. What sets them apart from the safe states is the presence of large urban populations: Boston, Providence, and Honolulu, which all end up making them lean a bit more towards Jefferson, as many of these inner city voters would be more inclined to support him. Still, this is not by enough to flip them. And then there's the likely Jefferson states. For our likely Jefferson states, we have Arizona and its 11 electoral votes, 53 to 47. New Mexico and its 5 electoral votes, 53 to 47. Texas and its 40 electoral votes, 56 to 44. Iowa and its 6 electoral votes, 57 to 43. Michigan and its 15 electoral votes, 55 to 45. Indiana and its 11 electoral votes, 57 to 43. Ohio and its 17 electoral votes, 56 to 44. Mississippi and its 6 electoral votes, 55 to 45. Alabama and its 9 electoral votes, 56 to 44. New Hampshire and its 4 electoral votes, 53 to 47. Maine 02 and its 1 electoral vote, 55 to 45. And Maine at large and its 2 electoral votes, 53 to 47. So all of these states generally have large rural or working class populations, but enough urban or suburban areas to narrow Jefferson's margins, like Phoenix in Arizona, Dallas and Houston and El Paso in Texas, Detroit in Michigan. Over here it's like the Portland metro, which, because there's not very many people, it's able to flip things. But there are 2 exceptions here. Those are Mississippi and Alabama. They land here because of Pinckney's Southern background. He appealed immensely to Southern voters, and would definitely give him more of a base than Adams had, though it would still not be by nearly enough to beat out Jefferson. Alright, time for a quick intermission. At this point, Jefferson leads Pinckney 205 to 29, a rough showing for Pinckney, though not quite as bad as Adams' modern-day 1800 result. It's a bit like the 1988 election, where Dukakis only had 42 electoral votes at this stage, and, well, look how that turned out for him. Yeah, Pinckney's in a pretty bad spot. Not surprising, though, since he was basically the Federalist fall guy. In real life, his only wins came from states where legislatures picked electors and still leaned Federalist. Alright, intermission over. Let's get back to it. Alright, for our lean Pinckney states, we have Washington and its 12 electoral votes, 52 to 48. California and its 54 electoral votes, also 52 to 48. Utah and its 6 electoral votes, 52 to 48. Maine District 1 and its 1 electoral vote, 51 to 49. D.C. and its 3 electoral votes, 52.5 to 47.5. Virginia and its 13 electoral votes, 51 to 49. And Florida and its 30 electoral votes, 50.5 to 49.5. This is huge for Pinckney. California and Florida alone account for 84 electoral votes. Why did these vote this way? Well, California and Washington are both tech hubs, heavily shaped by the white wealthy voters, 25% of California's electorate and 30% of Washington's. These voters would strongly favor Pinckney, maybe something like 65 to 35, enough to offset others. Utah shifts slightly towards Jefferson, likely due to his patriotic legacy. Mormons are deeply patriotic, and his expansionism would end up resonating. Nevertheless, their belief in an albeit conservative, large federal government would end up outweighing this. And then in Maine District 1, suburban wealth would outweigh the urban progressivism of the Portland area, giving Pinckney a narrow edge. Then, in Virginia and D.C., government workers become a key block. So, most federal government offices are in the D.C. metro area. These voters would strongly oppose Jefferson's small government platform and end up backing Pinckney. Lastly, there's Florida, a highly diverse state, racially, economically, and culturally. But I believe the older suburban white population would tilt it towards Pinckney. In the absence of modern cultural wedge issues, they'd favor his message of federal stability, even if they do still want a conservative federal government. Now, let's look at those lean Jefferson states. We have Nevada, 52.5 to 47.5. Colorado, 10 electoral votes, 52 to 48. Minnesota and its 10 electoral votes, 51 to 49. Wisconsin and its 10 electoral votes, 52 to 48. Vermont and its 3 electoral votes, 50.5 to 49.5. Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes, 51 to 49. Maryland and its 10 electoral votes, 50.5 to 49.5. North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes, 52 to 48. South Carolina and its 9 electoral votes, 52.5 to 47.5. And Georgia with its 16 electoral votes, 52 to 48. So, Nevada and Colorado both have a strong libertarian culture. Both states have passed progressive measures around drugs, sex work, and personal liberty. Jefferson's decentralist civil liberties-driven philosophy would play well here. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania go to Jefferson due to their working-class populism, although their large metros would end up narrowing the margins, these being from the cities of Minneapolis, Milwaukee/Chicago, and Philadelphia. Maryland, North Carolina, and Georgia are shaped by minority voters. Neither candidate is especially good for them, but Jefferson's broader civil liberties platform, which does end up benefiting them more a little bit, would end up giving them the edge. And then finally, South Carolina. This is Pinckney's home state. People there would definitely be more inclined to vote for him due to name recognition. He's the hometown candidate. He's fought for their interests. Nevertheless, I don't think the state would end up voting for him. And then Vermont is a close one, but it ends up tipping towards Jefferson because of the rural and progressive crossover support for him, which would allow him to build a coalition to win in the state. Oh god, sorry for the earful. And now, anyway, let's move on to the tilt states. We're down to 3. Oregon, Illinois, and New York. These aren't decisive on their own, but together they account for a solid 10% of the Electoral College. Well, sorry to interrupt, but we have breaking news for the 1804 U.S. election. Burger Projections can now project the final states of Oregon, Illinois, and New York, as well as some late calls. We predict Jefferson will carry the state of Oregon and its 8 electoral votes, 50.7 to 49.3. We project that Jefferson will win New York with its 29 electoral votes, 50.4 to 49.6. And we predict that Pinckney will take the state of Illinois and its 19 electoral votes, 50.1 to 49.9. We can also project that Jefferson will take the state of Alaska and its 3 electoral votes, 57 to 43. We can predict that Jefferson will take Nebraska District 2 and its 1 electoral vote, 52 to 48. And we can project that Charles Pinckney will take the state of New Jersey and its 14 electoral votes, 57 to 43. Huh, that was weird. Anyway, here's the reasons why for all that. Oregon's strong libertarian lean and Portland's progressive core outweigh the suburban vote. Illinois is dominated by the Chicago metro. Even if Jefferson does do well in the very rural and very urban parts of the state, the sprawling suburbs push Pinckney just barely over the line. As for New York, Jefferson performs well due to strong support in the diverse New York City core and the rural upstate, while Pinckney does well in the wealthier suburbs among moderate urbanites. Still, it's not enough. Jefferson would win the state of New York. So, there you have it. If the 1804 election were to happen in the modern day, Jefferson would win the election 356 to 182. Although the Federalists have had their best go yet, it still wasn't nearly enough to flip the election for them. The margin here is comparable to the 2008 election, which was widely considered to be a landslide in favor of Democrat Barack Obama, although it isn't that bad compared to previous electoral landslides. If you enjoy this exercise in alternate election history, please like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Well, this has been your host, Bradley Berger, and that was Berger Elections. Have a political day.